Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to dial down the welcome music and just say, we are here. Oh my gosh, we're here. We're here with you. We're here together to just say, wow, what a ride. You had a chance to be a part of our journey over the last 10 years, whether you had a chance to just watch from the front row seat. We're excited to share with you that things have changed. Things have absolutely changed. And yet, the more they change, you know the cliche, the more they stay the same. And so Taylor and I really wanted to share with everybody, the community, the industry, the tribe of those of you who have been a part of the last 10 years, some of our insights, some of our lessons learned. And it's going to be the beginning of a series of conversations over 2024, where we're going to have some special guests who are going to come in and share some of their thoughts for what's happening in the industry right now, where are we going, and what do we need to do as leaders for our organizations and our teams, and what do we need to do as professionals for our own careers as the marketplace shifts. And some of these things are going to be a reinforcement of some old truths, and some of these are going to be some new patterns. Taylor, how about you kick us off with, for those who are on the call who don't know us, how about you kick us off with by introducing the two talking heads today?
Well, I did not put together an intro for you, but we'll come back to that. I'm Taylor Hageman. I am the Director of Operations or Chief Operating Officer for Fewell Innovation. Jesse and I have worked together for about almost 9 years. So before I came, Fewell Innovation was sort of getting off the ground and starting in the.
It was a mess. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I don't think it was a mess, but we were a little bit smaller. And then over the last 10 years, we've had the opportunity to grow. And I'm looking forward to reflecting on that now, as well as all the changes in the industry. And then, of course, I'll let Jesse introduce himself so I don't do him any injustice.
So I'm Jesse, and I started Fewell Innovation 10 years ago without Taylor, and as an individual consulting shingle. The idea was, let's all go into consulting. And then what quickly happened is that we started realizing that you can just do more together with like-minded people. And so Taylor joined and immediately started putting in the foundation for what would evolve away from being an individual consultant to being a proper team. And she's going to share some insights about what that looks like and what that means. How do you build a team when you don't have a lot to choose from? And so we'll get into that in a moment. And what's emerged over the last few years is that we've grown to be a family business where we're pulling in some friends and some colleagues into specific engagements. And we're also having a chance to help people in their careers along the way. So the idea is that we're building a community here. And we're hoping that for this hour, you're going to get some worthwhile information for your career and your role wherever you find yourself. So I'm going to just give a tease what's on the agenda today. And on the right-hand side of my screen, you'll see a little bit of I'm going to take a look at what does overcommitment look like, and how do we deal with it? There's more expectation than ever before, particularly from difficult stakeholders. Taylor's going to walk us through how she's managed that from from time to time. And for us, it takes the shape of bosses and clients. For you, it might just be any kind of stakeholder. Well, we did mention that we're going to talk a little bit about teams and what it looks like to build a team when you have a lot of constraints around time. I don't have time to do team building, and how do we make the most of what we have in the way of people? I have some thoughts on disruption. There's a lot going on in the industry right now, and in some ways it's nothing new, and in some ways everything has changed. So we'll play into that. And then we've got the opportunity to talk through your own unique contribution, your differentiator. There's some new data out in the industry about what does it take to stand out in today's marketplace. And then we have some time for some Q&A at the end, if there's any questions we haven't covered. So, and then we do have some giveaways. So we've got a couple of fun things at the end. If you stick around, we'll see who made it today, and whoever made it today might have a chance to get a fun prize. So I'll first and ask Taylor to kick us off a little bit. Taylor, how have you survived difficult stakeholders? You've worked on so many projects. You've worked with so many different kinds of organizations, and yet the theme is still true that some people are just tougher to deal with than others.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my boss is great. So I don't have as much information on the side of bosses. I've been really lucky that you and I have worked together for the last almost 9 years. And then our CFO, like it was kind of mentioned a minute ago, is part of the family as well. So I've had the opportunity to work with really great leadership. And then prior to coming to Fewell Innovation, of course, there were, great and questionable bosses along the way, just like everybody else. So I think my main interaction is with stakeholders outside of our organization, and then, of course, our team members that work on projects. And I don't know how much advice I have, but experience I have is more in the ways of, if people are difficult, it's likely based around their position, their workload, the morale in their office, and kind of understanding that point of view while we're working together has been very helpful. Often when somebody is difficult, I kind of think at first, like, is it me? And then I think, oh God, I wonder what they do with their day-to-day life. Like, is their day-to-day job just really not what they want to be doing or challenging? And then from that, it's a little bit easier to understand, like, okay, maybe this is why they're functioning the way that they are. Or am I just not giving them the right information and they're frustrated? Of course, that's happened a lot too. We have a tendency to talk mostly through email and chat features, and you don't always understand the context in which people are talking. So that's a barrier that we kind of experience quite a bit as well.
There's one in particular I'm thinking of. We have a client that we've been working with for many, many years who has been pretty easy to deal with, is more of a back office team member as opposed to like one of the big name leaders. And I know that, and yet they have a lot of influence on our finances and how we get paid. And yet in the last year, suddenly things got weird. Suddenly friction there. And so how did you go about your day? How have you been trying to navigate that, where one stakeholder that you had been able to rely on, suddenly something's going on?
Yeah.
And not the therapist.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
So if you've taken ours or any other trainers Cal classes, certified agile leader class, or if you just kind of have read some information about it, you know that there's some parts in there where you kind of go through your own leadership, I guess, pros and cons, like where you lean and maybe where you should try to lean in the opposite direction. And my overarching issue is people pleasing. Like, I don't want anybody mad. I hate that side of confrontation. So initially, when this person and I interacted and they were no longer as happy as maybe we have been in years past, I initially thought, of course, it's my fault. I've done something, what did I forget? That kind of stuff. And then as we kind of went through that specific engagement, it just became more obvious that they are very overworked. The morale in that organization is low. My goal then is how can we help overall? Maybe part of our training when we're coming in is going to be helpful to them, but unfortunately, a lot of times we don't get the opportunity to reach back offices with our training. And then just, they're bound by red tape, and that's probably gotten even more challenging over the years. So I wouldn't say that they and I are like best friends anymore or anything like that, but it definitely, we have a working relationship that we both understand, which is just very direct and, get the information that's needed. And it just, I don't know them well enough to say, hey, what's going on in your life? But you can obviously tell, like, when people adjust and they have a different way of interacting with you, like something's going on. And you can either try to help if you're in that position, or you can just kind of try to say, like, maybe it's not about me. We just need to find a new way to work together.
That's a good insight that when we have difficult stakeholders, on the one hand, one temptation is to say, well, somebody took a dose of jerk juice today. But then the other temptation is to want to know everything and to, okay, I don't understand unless I know what's going on. They're just going to be different. What I hear you saying is that there's a middle ground, that you can ask a few light questions that are easy. You're not going to dig into their personal stuff.
Yeah.
And you're not going to probe, but you're going to ask, well, tell me a little bit more about what we need to do.
Yeah.
And that might lead them to share what they're comfortable with, enough to where you know how to not trigger them as much.
Right. And most of the people on the call, we've interacted through email before, and I'll normally put something in there like, let me know what I can do to help, or, is there anything else we can do to get off your plate, or something like that. And I think it's used so frequently that it comes across as very, I didn't know what else to say when I signed off, sort of thing. But in reality, that is true. We want to try to take as much off that person's plate as possible, but sometimes I just have to be more direct about that. Like, honestly, what is going to get this off of your plate so that we can move forward and, have a better working relationship, as well as, in our case, get paid, which is important. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. We actually, on a board that I'm on, a volunteer board, we have employees in a group that we govern, and we had to let an employee go recently. And even through that process, it was very obvious that something else was going on in their life. And although they were not a fit anymore for the organization, it was important that after that conversation, we sat down and said, now what resources can we give you to help you through whatever's going on? Because clearly something changed really fast. And so it was hard to separate like work and personal, but sometimes there's situations where I think you can.
So if we were to offer kind of a 30-second summary, what does that mean for going forward for you? The next difficult stakeholder you're going to come across, is it do more of the same? Have you shifted your approach recently?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do as we learn more about ourselves and just grow. We try to shift intentionally based on that. Another side of my personality is that I just assume that people might know the background information or what to do from the get-go, and we can just kind of like jump halfway in and work through everything. And I've kind of learned over the past 10 years, like, always start from zero and give kind of a brief, hey, where are you in this project? So I can make sure that we're on the same page and we're level setting, and not insult anyone's intelligence on what they might know about the project, but just make sure that we're like working at the same, with the same knowledge. And of course, everybody's favorite Agile term of just kind of defining what done means in that portion of the project. Since I work with so many different people throughout an engagement, that's been really helpful too. And then, yeah, just always checking in with myself as well, making sure that I'm doing what I need to do to make sure they feel comfortable, and that maybe any resistance or something I might take as rudeness isn't coming across like as bothering me when I'm working with them. And I put in my notes that I do something to you all the time, which is make you take your like boss hat off and just put on your coworker friend hat. And I do like quiet complaining, which is like, I just need to tell you that this one person was so rude. Thank you for letting me get that off my chest. Put your boss hat back on and we can move forward. So it's nice to have somebody to kind of, release some of that too as well.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, you get to play both roles, but
yeah, I've seen the fact that you get your own professional development and your own coaching outside of our team, and because of that, you're able to maintain your own growth and development. And this is good. These are good tips and insights. So this is one of those patterns that we've discovered, ladies and gentlemen, that the people that you used to be able to work with suddenly are difficult to work with. And that there's an opportunity for us to be ready for that moment so that we can navigate that with excellence instead of just not enjoying our day because somebody ruined our day. People still ruin your day, Taylor. I know.
That's true.
All right, Taylor's got another question for me then.
Yes.
We're gonna switch gears.
Thank you for driving too in this mural. And actually, while you're driving, let me get up in here and follow you. So a big issue that I still have, and you think I would have learned from you by now, but is just overcommitment in general. I will likely commit to anything someone asks me to do. So, and you are involved in so many things, not only our organization, you're a principal coach, the president of our organization, as well as currently the chair of the PMBOK 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a lot going on, volunteer opportunities, you're getting your MBA. So maybe you could share with us about how you survive overcommitment just day to day. And then of course, within our organization.
Yeah. This is actually the new curse of the modern age. We've heard about this. There's a ton of research around the fact that we have more to deal with in our time than in human history. Faster pace of change, more advanced technology that is becoming increasingly more nuanced and different. And social change is happening at a faster pace than ever before, where what we thought was, the things you could say in the office 5 years ago, you can't say them 5 years ago, today. And so there's a lot that's on people's minds. Never mind that you have all of these stakeholders and bosses and leaders saying, we need you to do more. We need you to do more. We need you to do more. And Taylor and I both in our roles have faced that because there's all kinds of stuff that she has to juggle. There's stuff that I have to juggle. There's two thoughts that I wanted to share today. The first one is know what you're committing to and know what you're being asked to do. Sometimes there's so much going on, it's easy to intertwine the things that we want to do, the things that we've chosen, versus the things that we have to do. These are things that are family expectations or job expectations, and they're really important. And so sometimes the first step is just to tease apart how much of the heavy scale is coming from me, as opposed to just being like frustrated that my boss or my stakeholders keep loading more onto our plate. And so Taylor, that's something that you and I have had to talk about, because sometimes as a leader, you tend to miss delegation opportunities.
Yeah, I am pretty terrible at delegating.
And
how much are you putting on yourself as opposed to what the expectation of the other person is? Because sometimes it's not quite what you think it is.
Yeah, and so that goes back to that conversation about what does done mean, and setting those boundaries. So that's thought number one, was know what you need to commit to. And there's a chapter in Untapped Agility about personal backlog prioritization, about the difference between what you want to do versus what you have to do versus what you feel like you should do, that causes a lot of guilt and stress. And you can check that out if you're struggling with letting go of things that you want. The other side of the coin, though, is that we tend to forget the difference between planned work and unplanned surprises. And planned work, in my mind, is anything that isn't due right now. Planned work is the deadline I have for next month, or it's the project that we're working on for the next several weeks. Or here comes the boss saying, oh, by the way, I'm going to add another project, but it's not due until May. So that's a surprise, but it's plannable. And so I can put that on my to-do list, my backlog, and I can plan that out. What's not plannable are things that are tend to be operational issues, operational emergencies. We just had one this week where one of the financial systems shut off our payments. And so guess which chief operating officer had to go quickly check in with our finance people and figure out what the hell is going on. That wasn't in her to-do list for the week.
Right.
And so what that means is that as professionals, we should absolutely we should never be surprised by surprises. And we should expect surprises to pop up. And those surprises go into, this is something that I don't have to deal with right away. It's fresh, it's new, I wasn't expecting it, but I have a couple of weeks, I have a couple of months, maybe even only just a few days. As opposed to, this just ruined my day.
Yeah.
I had a whole set of things I was going to do today, and now I have to set aside some things. Isn't it great that I anticipated this as a normal dose of reality, and I only ever plan about 50% of my week? Because I know half of my week, on average, tends to be filled with, hey, could you help me out with this? Hey, can you come to this meeting that I forgot to invite you to? Hey, can you reformat this and that, such. So those are the two things. One, know what your commitments are versus what you're being asked to do. And the other is start really reflecting on what's plannable versus not plannable. This is what I'm seeing in most of our clients these days. Most of our clients are struggling with the plannable and unplannable. And I think as professionals, this is going to become a new skill set that we absolutely have to master going into 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And I had a team I worked on one time where our team leader was very big on like making sure you got as much done on the first half of your week as possible, because everybody just expects by the end of the week, everything's going to blow up, right? Your kids are going to get sick. Something's crazy is going to happen. Friday's a random holiday, whatever the situation was. So that's always been kind of a rule that I'll try to live by too, is like, what can I offload in the front part of my week just to make sure that it's not hanging over my head all week.
Very good. The chime from the sky says it's time for me to ask Taylor the next question.
Well, super fast. If we have 1 second, your new skill set is keeping space for the unplanned stuff. So that is something that I know you have done a great job of, especially in the last 6 months. Is that what you'll continue to do for the future, or are you still working on some tactics with that?
It is something that one hack is that you look at your calendar and you block off meetings with yourself. And meetings with yourself where you're the only invitee and you keep the contents private, that's your wiggle space. It's space for you to get stuff done. It's space for you to where you can move things around. If you got called into a meeting, then there's a conflict. Well, you can move this thing around because you have this contingency. You have schedule contingency baked into your week. That's one. Yeah. The second one is learn how to say no. And to things you want to do. I was just recently invited. I was invited to facilitate a retreat of coaches and trainers, and it was a big honor. And I said, no, thanks. That week is just too crazy. There's no way. So there are things that you want to say no to where there's the concern. And of course, there's always a diplomatic way to say no. That's also there's a whole chapter in Untapped Agility about how to say no. So those are two thoughts that come to mind.
Thanks. Yeah, I like that. I need to learn how to say no better.
Well, learning how to say no might be a good way to build a team. So
yeah, we've built some really good teams in our organization, which I'm very proud of. All of our contractors and all the people we get to work with.
Yeah, and the way it works for us is our team members come and go. That tends to be a common pattern in most organizations, and as a small business, we do that. The fancy term for that is elasticity. Taylor and I were talking about that the other day.
Yeah. What's interesting with that too is I never really call it that, but it is accurate. So our team members, besides like our core employee group, will come in and out because of their own opportunities. So it's very contractor based. And a lot of that is really just because both parties prefer it that way. That's how it's been structured. But we do work with the same, for the most part, core group of individuals, and those projects change constantly. So that team is really elastic in the sense that they restructure almost consistently throughout the year. We have somebody in one project and then he might move to a different project, or he might take time off to go work with a different organization or whatever. But to me, it's really the most accurate definition of the word agile, but maybe not the most accurate definition of a lot of agile framework. We just are
this is one of the challenges, Taylor, right? Exactly. Which is, that's not agile. Agile says that you have to have a stable team.
Exactly.
In order to build a team. But for a lot of people on this call, we don't have that luxury.
No.
We have the luxury of keeping people, because in some companies, they yank your best person off over here, which has happened to us. Mm-hmm. And in other places, you only have them for a little bit of time because they themselves were a contractor or something. So Taylor, how do you get results? Because you do a good job of getting results.
Yeah.
Results when you don't know who you're going to have and you don't know how long you're going to have them.
Yeah. So, I mean, we definitely go into every engagement with a very strong understanding of what is required. And I think that that's a misconception for agility when we say, oh, we value people over processes. We aren't as worried about like the paperwork side of things, quote unquote. That is the case, but it's not. We're really here to make sure every party's protected, including our team members and our clients. So we always go into an engagement knowing like, are you going to be there that entire time of that, relationship? It's just after that engagement is over that the contractor might move on to something else, or we might put them on a different project or something like that. But anyone who has worked with us knows that sometimes our implementation process of team members in an engagement can be longer. Like you can't call me and then say, I need somebody on Tuesday, and it's Monday, or I need somebody next week and we're talking on a Thursday. Because what we do like to do is set up our team member that'll go in there. We want to make sure that they're connected with that organization, not just having the experience that the group might need to solve the problem, but also matching that culture, matching what they might need as like a coach attribute. Are they need somebody who's more strong-willed, who has a very commanding presence, or do they need somebody who's going to like blend into the team and be very cohesive and collaborative with everyone because they already have like a very good culture set up? So when we put somebody in an engagement, those are a lot of the things that we're looking at too, is like, how are they going to be the best team member for our client, not just lead them through the transformation or coach them or, whatever the situation is. And like you said before, like a lot of times I didn't handpick every person on our team, clearly. And there might be people that I love working with, but wouldn't necessarily invite over to my house for a beer, right? But they are the absolute best person in that position. And I know what I can put them in that they'll thrive and really be successful. And so I think that's the biggest thing, trying to see each person like holistically, and not just specific characteristics, or not just what their experience was when they used to work at Amazon or whatever that is.
Yeah, I heard it once shared to me that you build first, you build professional trust before personal trust.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're doing, is you're going to screen for culture fit, which is another way of saying values and principles, as much as their skill. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you like them enough to go out and have a beer.
Right. And in a coaching group I was in, we actually talked about trust a lot. Obviously, every coaching group does. But this was from the frame of, what does trust really mean? Does it mean I trust you to come hang out with me and I'll tell you my secrets, or I'm going to be your friend, or we like to talk on Zoom before our client shows up and I trust that you're going to, keep that friendship and relationship? Or does it mean that I trust that you are going to fulfill your commitments to that organization, that you care about the client before anything else, that you are going to be very transparent and communicate very strongly with us and the client? Because those are two very different things, right? Like one's a friendship, relationship, trust, and the other is like, I can staff you and I feel very happy that you're a part of our team. So just kind of defining each relationship and what that trust means has been helpful as well.
So in 2024 and beyond, what do you see staying consistent? What do you see evolving?
I mean, I hope that we always are able to take the time to analyze each need and put the perfect coach in for those groups. We've never strived to be, as an organization, like a staffing org where we just kind of are the first name on my roster, I'm going to put in with a group or a client. So, our goal is structured to always be able to take the time to do that. I think one thing that I look forward to implementing more is recently I involved a client in more of the interview process. I narrowed down candidates, and then I really had him spend a lot of time talking with those candidates that I felt very comfortable with already. And I had my bias of who I wanted him to pick, but kept it very like, let's really get your opinion on it. And I really enjoyed that a lot. Sometimes we're faced with a deadline, and that's not always possible. And they really just want us to go with who we feel the most comfortable with that will be successful. But I really enjoyed the full transparency of having him involved in that process as well.
That is, that's an example of radical transparency. And it's something you might want to talk about in your team, in your transparency.
I know, I keep spelling too.
Is when you're like trying to staff up a team, what if you were to ask other peers, other stakeholders, other leaders to offer their input, because they have just as much at stake. So I saw that happening from afar, Taylor, and I was intrigued to see how it played out.
Yeah.
Because it was new and it was different. So that was a stretch area for you that turned into fruit.
Yeah. I mean, and just for my own validation of past picks, I guess, when I put coaches into things, he did pick the coach that I would have picked for him. So at least that gave me like a little like, okay, good. Because had he not, and maybe I would have second guessed my process a little bit, but it worked out really well.
In the category of difficult stakeholders, it also builds respect with those stakeholders if they feel that they're part of that process.
Yeah. Yep. And we were able to more freely discuss that team's needs because it wasn't as much just me on my own kind of probing. It was, okay, what did you like about this candidate and those sorts of things. So it kind of, it was a really good experience, and I would recommend it for sure.
All right.
So I'm going to ask you some questions about disruption, which to me is right now a little bit scary. Just there's so much going on, and then we've clearly come out of the last few years of a lot going on, and we're looking toward a lot of disruption in our industries that I think can make people nervous as well as excited. So I know when you and I spoke yesterday, we were kind of going through some of these topics, and I don't want to lead you in a direction, but I know we're excited to talk about AI and the Agile Wars. So any insight into your most favorite disruption over the last 10 years?
So like if you zoom back out to 20, 30 years ago, it was Agile versus Waterfall. And then it was XP versus Scrum. And then it was Scrum versus everybody. And then it was Safe versus everybody. Mm-hmm. And then it was Jira versus everybody. And so the Agile Wars have been going on for the last quarter century. And it's really about the fight of ideas and mind share. Mm-hmm. What we've learned over the last year in particular is executives don't care
what it's called.
They absolutely don't care. They don't care what we argue about as practitioners, as experts in team building. What they care about right now, the current disruption, is how can you make money? And I mean, it sounds like so like duh, isn't that what all companies are? And yet we have one client that's a hospital where they're like, we have to cut 30% of our costs, but we're committed not to cut any heads. or roles or slots. What do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's definitely some real economic pressure that's happening right now. And it's a little bit similar to the 2008 recession, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
to the 2001 recession.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the one hand, we are entering into a season of financial stress. But one thing that you'll know, one thing I wanted to share is that we as people are pretty good at navigating this.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I think we all are okay that our Blu-ray DVD collection is not being used very much.
Yeah.
We've adapted. Our DVD collection was disrupted by streaming media, and now we can watch whatever we want to watch, wherever we want to watch, without having to go down to Blockbuster or or goodness, where would you go? Best Buy maybe to buy those things. And
Yeah.
so the other thing that's happened is that we transitioned to hybrid work environment.
Oh,
The
yeah.
hybrid work
What a
environment is here. It's here, and we figured it out. Some people are not as good as others. Some people struggle with knowing how to conduct a remote meeting or a hybrid meeting. And some leaders are doing the cookie cutter, one size fits all. Everyone will be here Wednesday, 9 to 5, the end. And like, okay, but that's the one day I don't have daycare. Thank you.
right. Yeah, yeah, taking individuals into consideration, but that's hard when you have teams as large as, some individuals do. It's like, can you take 200 different scenarios into consideration when you're making calls, like if you're going to come into the office, and how do you do that? How do you build a culture around that?
Yeah. So there's one pattern, which is anticipating the change. So one thing that we found that was really beneficial is that we were already a virtual company when the pandemic hit, and so the transition for us was relatively straightforward. We also already had some e-learning systems in place, such that when people were looking for more self-paced e-learning, like LinkedIn Learning or Udemy.com or anything like that, we already had some solutions in place, and that helped. And so what we found is that, number one, it pays to look ahead. As a professional in your own career as a leader, it pays to get a sense of what's coming just over the horizon. So I give all of you here a lot of credit for coming to conversations like this one, checking out the webinars. You don't have to fly to an in-person conference to see what's on the horizon, but just keep a pulse on what's going, so that if you, number two, see something that interests you, jump on it. So jump on the things that call to you. We have a couple of friends who have gone all in on AI. So
yeah,
go for it. I'm still figuring out what my personal AI strategy is, and Taylor and I and Mike and Akash, we're all still figuring out what our corporate strategy around AI is going to be. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
We do know that it's probably not going to be my full-time career.
But you said something the other day about AI that was super interesting, and I'm probably going to get it incorrect, but you did say that you think it will be one of the biggest disruptions in a positive way that's happened in the last 5 or so years. And you did equate it to another disruption, and now I can't remember what it was. But when we were talking to Hess yesterday, that was interesting to me, because we haven't come up with a formal policy on it yet, but clearly it's a part of our day-to-day life, and we're already looking forward to incorporating it in some training and things like that. So
yeah. So if those of you who are interested, and Taylor, you can type this up, the Scrum Alliance just released a free self-course on AI for agile teams. So if you're You could Google that up. Number two, the Project Management Institute just released a free project management chatbot based on generative AI that is free to all of its members. So if you're a member of PMI, you can check that out. I need to generate a schedule for all of this checklist. Go. And then it'll come up with a draft that'll be 20% wrong, but 80% right. So there are some tools out there that I think that all of us need to be paying attention to. But that doesn't mean you have to be an expert. It doesn't mean you have to go start doing conference presentations about the topic. I, for one, did not go anywhere near crypto. I know enough to be able to have a conversation and navigate it, but I've never once paid anything in Bitcoin, and it's not part of calling to me, and it's not part of our business strategy. On the other hand, we are absolutely looking into a post-Agile conversation now that the Agile community and the Agile conversation is becoming more mainstream and there's saturation. What are leaders looking for now that every team is a Scrum team? What's next? And so that is something we're exploring and talking about. So that would be, I think, what's happening is in the near future for us. Number one is we are absolutely looking to incorporate what I'll call mainstream AI. And we're also looking for that post-Agile strategy, post-Scrum team kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still a bit confused on how to even use AI, but I think I'm always behind the times.
Okay, real quick. So I'm going to type this in. Henrik Knieberg video on AI. He was the guy that did the Spotify video. Spotify Agile model. Released a 15-minute version on AI. If you liked the Spotify model video, ladies and gentlemen, he's got one for AI, which is a super fun and interesting take on it.
If you've taken a Scrum certification class from us, either CSPO or CSM, then you have seen that video because we incorporate it in there as well. Not the AI one, but the Spotify one.
So we're running a little bit behind. So I'm thinking that instead of hearing from us continue to blabber for a little bit, let's open the floor. What thoughts are on your mind, ladies and gentlemen? We want to spend a couple minutes chatting, and then we're going to go into our giveaway to close out. Feel free to unmute and or type something into the chat window, your preference.
Hey, Jesse and Taylor, I was just wondering if it's okay to talk here. I was just wondering, I was just wondering, can you point out some conferences that you guys think, are must attend or important or so for this year?
Well, coming from a place of bias, we will be at the Scrum Alliance New Orleans conference, so it would be great to see everybody. But if that is not within your travel plans, then there are some other great ones coming up too. Jesse is also going to be at the PMI conference. And forgive me, Jess, because now I don't remember when it is. Is that in September? Yep. Which will also be a really interesting conference as well. And then these are the big ones like Scrum. Everybody knows about the Scrum Gathering. Obviously, Agile 2024 is another big one. As far as local, depending on where you are, I know that, Frederick, you're in Virginia, DC area. Is that right?
Kind of, sort of Maryland, but yeah, the DC, the DMV area, yes.
Yeah, we always find a lot of value, I was going to say, in Agile DC. It because it's such a good hub for not only the organizations, but practitioners and trainers, there's always just a lot of information out of that conference. Do you have any others to add, Jeff?
I recommend those of you who work in large-scale agile environments, the SAFE Summit is also a good place to go. I've been to one myself and found the conversations there to be just as solid as the other conferences that are listed here. A word of note about conferences, they are more and more going to be in person instead of hybrid. And so if that should not stop you from looking at virtual meetups. So virtual meetups is a really good option if you're not able to do an in-person event for budget or schedule reasons. I think we got Wanda in the chat window has done everybody a huge service.
Yeah, yeah, I was just
summary of the entire session. And yes, otter.ai. So we're talking about it and then boom, here she comes modeling how to do it.
There it is in the flesh.
Any other closing questions, thoughts before we give our giveaway?
I just want to say, Jesse, I've taken to heart a lot of your ways of coaching, just internally, and the use of music. I love. I do it. I do it a ton. People sometimes even request during some of my sessions of what to play, or and they expect it, and so I think that's been a huge help. I think of just changing the paradigm of a typical just meeting and making it more interactive. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I never realized how helpful that was until you go to meetings where it's not. And then I'm like, oh, I mean, who's going to talk first? It's so quiet. I'm just kind of nervous. But Elena, who's a very good friend of mine and brilliant, and she's probably embarrassed that I'm calling her out right now, but she's on this meeting, and she had sent me a message that just said she wanted to comment on working with difficult clients. Every interaction is an opportunity to learn and grow. You either win or you learn. She does work with some wonderful but also difficult clients, and her line of work. Elena, I don't want to get your title wrong. You are an ABA therapist. Is that correct?
So I'm a behavior analyst. Yes.
Okay.
And I recently started my own business. So I do a lot of like freestyle working.
Yeah.
And yes, definitely working with some difficult clients. And the nature of my work, we work with maladaptive behaviors. So this is my jam. And that's just the philosophy I've adopted is I'm going to learn from any interaction. It's and then at the end, I either win or I learn, which is also winning in a way.
That's right. Exactly. And I do want to say also on a personal note that my kids have learned more from Elena than they've ever learned from me. So just if you're in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area, you should check her out because she's fantastic.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our time. Here's what's coming up next. This is the first one of these. We're going to try to roll out a monthly event. It might be an executive leader interview. It might be a expert guest speaker masterclass. It might be a conversation like this. So stay tuned. More of this is coming. We wanted to kick off the year with some reflections about what's worked for us, what might help you, and what we're looking at going into the future. And more is coming. So this is just a kickoff. We will be at the Global Scrum Gathering in New Orleans in May, speaking about Untapped Agility and the book. We're also coming up in May with a certified agility and leadership workshop. This is a 16-hour live workshop that explores how to become an agile leader that builds an agile organization. We're about to give away a seat to that workshop right now. We're also about to give away a seat to a level 2 program, which is a 3-month cohort starting in March that goes even deeper into your personal agile leadership skill set. And we're going to be sending you some information in the mail about those 2 programs and how they represent a growth journey. And so Taylor very quickly is going to randomly select.
How am I going to randomly select? Just close my eyes and pick something? Before we awkwardly put Taylor on the spot of picking somebody, I do want to say that, say you're not in an organization that is involved in Agile, or you don't feel like you have the capability of maybe moving that needle, the CAL class, the Agile leadership class that we're talking about, is a wonderful leadership class. I just want you to, that word is really all you need to know, is leadership. I've had officers from the military, enlisted NCOs from the military, or doctors take this course that have really not much to do with leading an organization into an Agile transformation, and gain a ton of knowledge from it. So just keep that in mind too. We're kind of working towards maybe making the word Agile just mean good leadership overall, right? Okay, so now it's my turn to pick somebody randomly.
So you're going to close your eyes, and then you're going to move your finger around and touch the screen, and whatever name is on the screen that you're touching. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, Gil Pisano.
Woo! Gil.
Gil
is the either Gil or one of Gil's colleagues. Has a free seat to the upcoming Level 1 leadership program in May. All right, now you get to do that again. 3, 2, 1, go.
And Tim. Yay!
Tim now has a free seat to the upcoming Level 2 program that is going to be a 3-month exploration of how to grow your impact and influence.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, look, thank you so much for joining us. That's all the time we have. We will absolutely be sending you these materials, the recording. We're going to be sending you all this information, including the links to the programs here in the next couple of days. Thank you for joining us on our journey, and thank you for joining us today. Really, really excited for 2024.